Bright QT. Every student matters.
Hello everyone. Let's start our next topic for chapter number 1, that is the rise of nationalism in Europe. So our new topic here is unification of Germany, and the timeline here is 1866 to 71. Yes. Now this is really important, students. Let me tell you. The topic that we are going to learn now, that is about the unification of Germany, then unification of Italy. These are some important topics for this chapter. So here, let us try to see that how this rise of nationalism, or let's say this feeling of nationalism, it led to the unification of Germany. How did it become a nation state, about which we learned in our first section? Okay, so here let us see what was the situation of Germany before and how did unification happen here. Okay, so initially Germany comprised of 200 petty kingdoms that were ruled by a prince. Now what do we see here? The today's map of Germany was not similar to the map that existed earlier. Let's say during this period before the unification of Germany, right? So before 1871, there were so many small kingdoms. Around 200 small kingdoms were there in Germany. Now this is the boundary of Germany. As you can see, I am pointing out in the map here. Okay, so this is the boundary here, and you can see so many petty kingdoms are there or existed in Germany, right? And after the arrival of Napoleon, the scenario changed. Napoleon conquered these regions and united them into 39 states. Again, when we look at this map here, we see the confederation of German states. Now, what does the term confederation mean? It means that the association of different states, right, coming together, or association of these different kingdoms. So, Napoleon, you must be aware of this term or this name here. Napoleon was the famous military dictator of France. So when he came to rule, he conquered the regions of Germany. And what did he do? He united all these petty kingdoms into 39 states, right? So you can see that there were total number of 39 states in Germany right now. Okay? Now, what happened after that? When Napoleon was defeated in the year 1815. Now, are you aware of this particular year here, 1815? So, 1815, there was this famous battle of Waterloo, in which Napoleon was defeated by the famous European powers because they did not want him to control all the regions of Europe. And as you know, that Napoleon was known for his military dictatorship, right? He was a great statesman. So he was acquiring all the territories or the neighboring territories in Europe. And the European powers, they were quite afraid now. And therefore, they decided to defeat him. And it was in the year 1815 that the Battle of Waterloo took place and Napoleon was defeated. At the same time, Treaty of Vienna or the Congress of Vienna established, and also they established a loose confederation in Germany. Okay, so what existed there was a loose confederation now. It was not this confederation of 39 states right now, a loose confederation of all these different states. Each ruler resisted the rise of nationalism in his state. Definitely, no ruler wanted that people should be aroused with this feeling of nationalism, and therefore they resisted this idea of nationalism. Why? Because it can weaken their rule in that particular kingdom. Okay? Now, boost to nationalism was given by students and teachers. Nevertheless, people were quite aware by now. So, revolts of 1848, apart from that, many other factors were responsible for the rise of this feeling of nationalism. Among whom? Among the students and teachers. And festivals were also held to express national sentiments or national feelings. Now, one of the most important festivals was the Wartburg festival that was celebrated here in Germany, right? So, you can see the map of Germany here. Again, please note that this is the boundary of Germany here, okay, that I am pointing out. So, this was a loose confederation after the death of Napoleon or his defeat also. Apart from this, let us see what were some other factors that were leading to the unification of Germany. Now, you are aware of this term, that is Zollverein. Let us try to understand that how this Zollverein, it also led to the unification of Germany. Now, students, you already have learned of this idea or ideology, that is liberalism, and in this you have somewhat learned about Zollverein. So, let's have a quick recap of what this Zollverein was in Germany. So, in the year 1834, customs union formed by the German states in Prussia to convert Prussia into free trade area. Okay. So, what happened? That in the year 1834, some of these states, not all, some of the states, the German states here, they came together in Prussia and they wanted a free trade area in Prussia. Why? Because they wanted to abolish the tariff barriers, okay, and also do some economic reforms. Now, do you remember this tariff barrier here? So, I already have told you about this, that people who were traveling from one region to another, if any merchant, he had to sell a product and he had to travel from one region to another in Europe, let's say from Nuremberg to Hamburg. So, he had to cross through 11 or 13 custom barriers, and there he had to pay tax. It was quite time consuming and also calculative, right? Different currencies were also used at these different places. So, therefore, they wanted some uniform economic reforms there and also abolish the trade tariff barriers. Okay. So, this was all about the Zollverein. So, it was a customs union that was formed in Prussia. It also paved the way for political unity. Yes. Apart from this, Revolution of 1848 in France had an impact in Germany as well. Quite true, students, because before this, you already have learnt about the results of the revolts of 1848, and we saw how it impacted the region of France. The monarch had to abdicate and poor people, they came on road, they were revolting against the monarch, and also the situation of turmoil, how it was changed there. So definitely it had some impact in Germany as well. So let us try to understand what happened in the revolt of 1848. So Germany or the German people, they rose against their enemy, that is Austria. Apart from this, people, they decided to hold elections in Germany. So, what happened? They wanted to have an all-German National Assembly comprising of the middle class. Okay? So, therefore, the middle class people, they came together in the city of Frankfurt. and this was the Frankfurt Parliament or the Frankfurt Assembly. For example, in India we have the Parliament and it comprises of two houses, that is Lok Sabha and the Raj Sabha. Likewise, when we are talking about Germany, here the Parliament was the Frankfurt Parliament. Okay? So all the people, the middle class people, they started marching in this region, that is Frankfurt. They assembled there and therefore it is known as the Frankfurt Assembly. Okay? So they decided to vote for an all German National Assembly, right? They wanted a constitution. They wanted elections to be held. So they were wanting for some reforms here. Now on 18th May 1848, 831 elected representatives, they marched to take their position in the assembly. Now all these were the middle class people. Okay? So there were 831 elected representatives and they marched on to this place to take their position in the assembly. Okay? But what was the situation here? Did it actually happen? No, it was a complete failure. So here what happened? All these elected representatives, they assembled in this Frankfurt Parliament in Germany. As you can see that it was a large gathering. Now this is the image depicting the Frankfurt Assembly here. Okay. So what were these middle class demanding? They were demanding for a constitution that was to be drafted for Germany with king as head and subject to parliament. Now this is a major change that was happening. Now what was the main demand here? That a constitution should be formed in Germany or drafted in Germany, and also king was to be the formal head, but he had to consult the parliament in taking all the decisions. Now why he had to do that? Because he was the subject to the parliament as per the new constitution that was to be drafted. So by hearing this, the then king Frederick William IV, he rejected this proposal. Why? Because he did not want to tamper his position in Germany. Therefore, he rejected this proposal of being the king and subject to parliament. Eventually, the Frankfurt Assembly, it failed to achieve anything. And now, the troops they were called in and the whole assembly was disrupted and it became a total failure. Also, Austria remained supreme till 1861. Germans they rose against Austria, but till 1861, Austria was the supreme power. Now, during this period again, what do we see? We see that monarchy, then military, and the large landowners of Prussia, they suppressed this whole idea, right? The whole idea of a new constitution and the king to be the subject of parliament. And therefore, Prussia became the most powerful state here. And Prussia took on the leadership for the unification process. And the chief architect of this German unification was Otto von Bismarck. Yes, you have to remember this name here, students. Quite important. Otto von Bismarck was the chief architect of the unification of Germany that took place during this period, that is 1866 to 1871. Now, during this period, he followed the policy of or the iron and blood policy. Okay. So there were 3 wars over 7 years with the main enemies here, that is Austria, Denmark and France. And at the end, Prussia was the victorious one. So under the leadership of Otto von Bismarck, Prussia, they gained the victory, and finally Germany was unified in the year 1871, and it happened in January, and William I was proclaimed as the king. Now look at this map here. This is Germany after unification. As you can see, this is the boundary here. The main enemies were Austria, France, and also we saw that they were fighting with Denmark here. Okay. So this is the map of Germany after the unification. Now this is how the whole process took place. Now first question here, which we have already dealt, let us talk about it again because we have read about it in this topic. So in very short answer questions, you will find what was Zollverein. Now in simple terms, how can we define this? The economic union of German states formed in the year 1834 to manage tariffs and economic policies within their territories. Yes, students. So basically, the main idea was to abolish the tariff barriers and also introduce some uniform reforms in economic terms. Okay, so this is how you are going to answer this question in 1 or 2 lines. The next question is discuss the unification of Germany, and this is an extra question here that might come in your exam. So here you have to talk about few points that we have read in this topic in detail. You can say that Germany earlier comprised of 200 petty kingdoms and each kingdom was ruled by a prince. Now Napoleon unified them under 39 states, but after Congress of Vienna, a loose confederation was set up in Germany. Now boost to nationalism was given by university students and festivals were also held. Impact of the revolution of 1848, about which we have already talked, as in how in Frankfurt Assembly the middle class they marched and demanded for a constitution, and also they wanted the king to be the subject of parliament, right? The head as well as the subject of parliament, to which Wilhelm IV totally denied, and therefore the whole assembly was disrupted. And this somehow it gave a sense of nationalism among the common people of Germany. Not only this, Prussia took over the leadership, and under the leadership of Otto von Bismarck, 3 wars were fought over 7 years. And finally in January 1878, Germany was unified and King William I was the king, the proclaimed king of Germany. So this is how you are going to answer this question.